Yo, Julius, this is your girl Raven Chapman, the Omen. Just want to give you a big shout out here from the UK. And Ring IQ, you're the man. Thanks so much for your support.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. An image that has been making the rounds from Edgar Berlanga's Instagram stories. It appears that Eddie Hearn is getting very cozy with Edgar's manager, Keith Connolly. Is it possible that Edgar Berlanga ends up migrating from Top Rank over to Matchroom? In truth, I don't really think this is a case of one man's trash is another man's treasure.
I guess trash overall. He's trash at Top Rank, he'll be trash at Matchroom.
Trash. And you guys don't actually think he decided to part ways with Top Rank because he was looking for fights with guys like David Morrell or David Benavidez, Caleb Truax or Caleb Plant.
Demetrius Andrade.
Those kinds of people. You don't have it in your head that Edgar decided to leave Top Rank because he wants to step it up a bit. No, quite the opposite. He wants to stay on Easy Street, but he wants to stay on Easy Street whilst making very good money. And there are only so many ways that can happen. One among them is migrating over to Matchroom. His manager, Keith Connolly, he took Richardson Hitchens as soon as he became a promotional free agent, and that's where he sent him. He sent him to Matchroom.
Why am I not surprised?
It's not a knock on Matchroom. It's just that I don't think for a second Edgar Berlanga parted ways with Top Rank because he wanted to fight PBC fighters or any fighters for that matter, not solid ones.
He wants time, and Matchroom can give him time. Time to develop.
Eddie might be interested in this guy. He might. Yet another interested party in procuring Edgar Berlanga as a commodity is Oscar De La Hoya. Oscar De La Hoya, who's eager to sign Edgar Berlanga to Golden Boy, saying, come talk to us, or we'll fly to you.
For what? This guy sucks.
I want to give a shout out to Berlanga. De La Hoya told host Beto Duran, completely changing the subject after discussing this weekend's show and other upcoming Golden Boy events. Come talk to us, or we'll fly to you.
Oscar De La Hoya and Edgar Berlanga would be strange bedfellows because Oscar primarily deals with a lot of Chicano fighters and Central American fighters, whereas Edgar Berlanga's niche, his appeal, is being of Puerto Rican descent.
More of an East Coast thing than a West Coast thing or a Southwest thing.
How are Edgar Berlanga's stinkers going to go over in Southern California? You tell me.
I see that what Oscar is attempting to do is duplicate the same process we saw with Zurdo Ramirez, yet another former top-ranked fighter that eventually ended up migrating over to Golden Boy Promotions. And for what it's worth, I do think they can get Edgar Berlanga some fights, some safe ones.
But you know, Edgar primarily fights out of the tri-state area, New York City. Matchroom does more shows in New York than Golden Boy does.
Golden Boy himself continued, he's an exciting fighter who has had an exciting career with Top Rank. I respect Bob Arum for what he's done with his career, noted De La Hoya, who spent much of his Hall of Fame career with Top Rank before forming his own company in 2002. For some reason, they parted ways. It's now time to move on. Hey, shout out to Berlanga.
You know what Oscar wants to do? He wants to make a good old Puerto Rico versus Mexico kind of fight between Edgar and Jaime Munguia.
You often hear it said that Jaime Munguia's quality of competition is pedestrian at best, that they're handling that guy's career with kid gloves on. And while I do agree with that, it's even worse with Edgar. I don't think Edgar would set foot in the ring.
He's not fighting Jaime. Jaime beat the shit out of him.
The shit. That is not a fight that I see happening in the next 2 to 3 fights for Edgar Berlanga. They would deem Jaime Munguia as being too risky. I mean, if they had cold feet about fighting Gabriel Rosado and Jesse Hart, Christian Mabili, you'd think they're in a hurry to get in there with a mauler like a Jaime Munguia. No fucking way. It's a palpable possibility somewhere down the line, but it's not something that I would expect to see in the immediate future based on how Edgar's been looking fight by fight, performance by performance. He's been looking terrible.
And yet both Eddie Hearn and Oscar De La Hoya want to sign him?
Out of those two, he's better off with Eddie because of what I said before. Matchroom does more shows on the East Coast than Golden Boy does.
Has done more shows in New York, still does more shows in New York than Golden Boy.
So at least in theory, he's better off with them. For now.
But who can Eddie Hearn muster up for him to fight?
He can get him a few low-level opponents. Perhaps build him up towards a Danny Jacobs fight towards the end of the year. I'm pretty sure Danny and Eddie still have a good working relationship. And I'm pretty sure that Danny isn't afraid to get in the ring with a guy as limited as Edgar Berlanga.
Maybe a Nikita Bibi fight, a Diego Pacheco fight sometime down the line.
The lungs Diego would punch out of this fucking guy. Are you kidding me?
I did say down the line.
The question is, can Matchroom keep this guy busy? I think they can.
I think they will.
In men's middleweight news, I'm sure most of you have heard by now that Chris Eubank Jr.'s promotional team are considering an appeal to the British Boxing Board of Control over an alleged elbow from Liam Smith in his stoppage win last Saturday. A lot of talks about this the past week. In truth, I must have missed it. I didn't see an elbow land in the heat of the moment during the fight, and I didn't hear Chris Eubank Jr. cry out that he was hit with a foul.
An illegal blow.
It's not uncommon after a Josh Warrington fight, for example, to hear the opponent complaining of head clashes, what are being interpreted to be deliberate clashes of heads, deliberate fouls. Whereas after this fight, I didn't hear Chris Eubank Jr. say that he felt that he got hit with an illegal shot, an elbow, and I'm sure that an elbow across the face feels a bit different than a glove.
With leather on it.
Some previous instances where one fighter suspected foul play, like what we saw in the Barbie Juarez versus Yuli Hangaluna fight. You know, Barbie Juarez, she thought that Yuli Hangaluna's wraps may have been loaded with something. So immediately after the fight, she said as much. She complained and demanded to have those wraps inspected.
But do you see what I'm getting at? That I didn't hear Chris complaining after the fight. I didn't hear Chris say that he got hit with an elbow, and that's what rattled him.
Not after the fight, not immediately after. I didn't hear that. In truth, at no point this week did I see Chris Eubank Jr. say that it was the elbow that did him and not the punches.
Could be a few reasons for that. Maybe he did feel the elbow, but he doesn't want to behave like a sore loser. Maybe that's what it is, or maybe he's gonna wait before he decides to start hamming it up.
Elbow or no elbow, maybe they will use this as a marketing angle, a marketing tactic in order to help sell a second fight between him and Liam Smith. It being that, you know, Kell Brook, who was paying close attention to this fight, he doesn't seem all that interested in facing Liam Smith.
Ben Shalom said ahead of the fight that Kell Brook was desperate to face the winner of this fight, but post-fight, that's not the sentiment that we're getting from Ezekiel himself.
I don't see Kell saying that. Not that it matters anyway, because Chris Eubank Jr. is reported to have a rematch clause, which I think he's already exercised.
Liam Smith may not have much of a choice. He might have to fight this guy again.
Kell's going to have to find something else to do. In truth, I don't expect that the BBBofC will overturn the initial decision. I think, if anything, this gives them a precedence to do a second fight, to do a rematch, and use this illegal elbowgate, as it were, as a marketing angle to help sell it. These guys fighting each other again when that was a clear knockout.
Clear in the sense that Chris Eubank Jr. was out on his feet. Clear in the sense that he couldn't continue.
As far as the elbow, I just don't know. I didn't see it in the moment. It seems like a revisionist version of history. I maintain my original position that if something did Chris Eubank Jr. in, it was the two camps. The intended camp for the intended Conor Benn fight and the camp for this fight. I think that left Chris Eubank Jr. depleted, so depleted that his trademark chin, he must have left that in the gym because it wasn't with him the night of the fight.
Chris Eubank Jr. is known for being a good physical specimen. Not much of a boxer, not much of a tactician, a technician. He's not known for that, but he's known for being a good physical specimen.
With a chin, just not last Saturday.
Such a sharp deviation from the Chris Eubank Jr. we've all come to know and No.
No and love?
No, I can't fucking stand Chris Eubank Jr.
May end up getting 2 fights out of this. I don't know if it's 2 fights that people are demanding per se based on this elbow situation. Does that really make a second fight more intriguing, more appealing to the consumer? Does it really?
Don't forget that this was a pay-per-view in the UK. This was a box office fight.
You think people want to get charged again to see these 2 boys run it back? They care that much, do they really?
About Chris Eubank?
In other news, per tweet from Michael Benson, Robert Smith updating on the BBBofC's UCAD situation with Conor Benn, that investigation. The information we require, we haven't received. For whatever reason, Mr. Benn's legal team have decided. They've sent a 270-page document to the WBC. We have not seen that.
Conor Benn is still in the process of trying to prove his innocence, though even if he does to some degree, the boxing community at large, to them,
he's as good as guilty, and he always will be. Not dissimilar from the reaction Canelo Alvarez gets from some individuals in some circles due to his clenbuterol fiasco some years ago.
Reports claimed that he proved his innocence, but not in the minds of a lot of people.
Conor Benn himself caught wind of Michael Benson's tweet and tagged the BBBofC saying, "Don't worry, Robert Smith, you'll be hearing from my lawyers.
It's awesome.
Peds in the sport of boxing, performance-enhancing drugs in the sport of boxing. It's a taboo subject that sometimes you don't know how you should feel about it because anybody from Canelo Alvarez to Tyson Fury has tested positive for banned substances, so why would everybody be up in arms when the same thing happens to Conor Benn?
As far as I'm concerned, the entire sport is rife with it.
So is it really that big a deal? Conor Benn was quoted as saying, "People keep talking about a comeback. I never left. 154, 160, no problem."
He's coming back whether you like it or not.
BBBofC wants to give this kid a hard time. He ain't got to pursue a boxing license with them. He can still fight abroad. He can still fight in Saudi. He can still fight in America.
Yeah, but the following that he's amassed over time, it's over there in the United Kingdom, not in the United States.
Yeah, but the following that he's amassed over time, that following is likely taking a hit on the heels of this performance-enhancing drug fiasco. So what Conor Benn really needs to do is just get back out there. Just get back out there anywhere he can get back out there with anyone who's willing. Put distance between himself and what took place last year, because by the time he's in the ring,
That'll be the focus.
not the stuff from last year. Believe it or not, people don't really care all that much.
Oh, they might take shots at Conor Benn from time to time due to the situation. They might take shots at the guy, but believe you me, they don't actually care that much about performance-enhancing drugs in the sport.
Many of the guys and gals with their tiki torches out looking to crucify Conor Benn for what took place, a good number of them are Tyson Fury fans, and Tyson Fury had his own fiasco when it came to performance-enhancing drugs and banned substances.
This is virtue signaling if it's anything. It's not that big a deal. I'm sorry, but it's not.
It's not. You'll notice that Conor Benn sent a 270-page document to the WBC that the BBBofC claims he didn't send to them. And last I checked, if you want a boxing license, the WBC can't give you one. So why are you trying so hard to get their blessing?
So that when he comes back, he can achieve a rank with them.
Yeah, but that in and of itself won't get you a boxing license.
You want a boxing license and you want to box in the United Kingdom again, you've got to get the BBBofC to play ball.
That is, you have to appease them.
You have to. Or you're going to have to fight abroad. You're going to have to hope that Eddie can get you a fight in a Saudi Arabia show.
Abu Dhabi, Dubai, America, somewhere.
While you smooth things over with the BBBofC.
Conor Benn's coming back whether you like it or not. This isn't enough to keep him out of boxing. If Tyson Fury's Nandrolone case in 2016 wasn't enough to keep him out of boxing, and Jarrell Miller's highly publicized ped fiascos, two of them, if that wasn't enough to keep him out of boxing, this won't be enough to keep Conor out of boxing.
I don't think.
Ben Shalom said that Kell Brook was desperate to face the winner of last weekend's fight. Well, the winner and the loser are still all tied up with each other, but there's still Conor Benn.
You can still fight him. You can still make money with him.
Ahead of last weekend's fight, Kell Brook himself did say that Conor Benn, that fight was always and still is there to be made.
So what are you telling me? That if Eddie Hearn by some chance made this fight in, say, Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, somewhere abroad...
Of course, the BBBofC's giving Conor a hard time, but what are you telling me? That if he made this fight between those two guys, those Brits at home, they wouldn't watch it because of all their altruism. Because they care so fucking much about a clean sport. They care so fucking much that those same people root for Tyson Fury.
Better wake up and smell a coffee. They don't care that much. They'd watch it.
And finally, Talk Sport host Simon Jordan says, DAZN's content is crap, and I suspect Eddie Hearn is embarrassed.
That's harsh.
It seems like Simon Jordan has had an axe to grind with Eddie Hearn ever since this entire Conor Benn fiasco kicked off. It's almost like he's making it an Eddie Hearn issue when really it's Conor Benn's issue.
Or it was.
This is about DAZN. Simon was quoted as saying, I think the whole thing, in its original format, as a different opportunity to deliver boxing was a good thing. DAZN for me, as a model and a concept, had merit and has substance behind it because A, the guy who is funding it has got more money than God, and B, boxing with another portal, another opportunity to reach an audience was, in my view, was something that was useful. The problem is that their content is crap.
Some things are subject to debate, some aren't.
The platform's growth over time, that's not subject to debate. It has, in fact, grown over time, expanding to well over 100 territories, 200 or close to 200, whatever it is now.
It's not subject to debate, that's a fact.
Whether or not the content in and of itself is crap, as Simon Jordan says it is, well, I think that opinion may vary from person to person. Simon continued, Twitter has never turned a copper coin, yet it has been sold for $45 billion to Elon Musk. It's about influence. It is about subscriber numbers. It is about building a business model that may take some time to get to where it's going to go to. The problem from DAZN's point of view is that the content that they are delivering is not good enough. There isn't enough fights being made. Their golden goose is playing hide and seek with himself, Anthony Joshua, trying to work out who and when he is going to fight. All of those things to me look like a proposition that is in decline.
Do you get the sense that Simon, based on what Anthony Joshua is going through right now, do you get the sense that he's using that as a gauge for where DAZN is, the DAZN platform?
I do. I get the sense that Simon is a big Tyson Fury fan.
That's what I think. DAZN has a lot more going on in terms of boxing than just Anthony Joshua. Doesn't Simon know that?
When you look at it, past the big fights, and you look at it as a platform, there's not a lot going on. There's not a lot of fresh content. And you look at and go, his is a snooze fest. With a vested interest that boxing gets an audience wherever it goes, it's a little bit of a disappointment. For Eddie Hearn, I suspect, it's a little bit of an embarrassment.
Now, if you yourself feel like Simon, and you think that most of DAZN's content is crap
as it pertains to boxing, because that is what we're talking about, you're essentially saying that fights like Canelo versus Bivol, or Bivol versus Ramirez, fights like Conlon versus Wood,
that's crap. A Fight of the Year candidate, last year's Fight of the Year candidate, that's crap.
Chocolatito versus Estrada 2 and 3,
That's crap.
Bam Rodriguez versus Sorung Visai,
That's crap.
Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano,
Also crap.
Joshua versus Usyk 1 and 2,
Also crap.
the upcoming Wood versus Lara fight for what is the WBA featherweight title. You're telling me you don't like that fight, that content. That's crap.
Crap.
I'll tell you the truth that I don't think Simon Jordan watches as much boxing and knows as much about boxing as he lets on. If his only gauge for DAZN's success and their content is Anthony Joshua and what he's doing,
Then I honestly think this guy don't know the ball from the bounce. He don't know what the fuck he's talking about. You know that KSI kid with that Misfits series?
those social media influencers and the box office fights they put on the DAZN platform. The last one sold a little over 300,000 or 300,000, and the one before that sold 400,000 or close to 500,000.
But Simon says they ain't got nothing going on.
And if you say so, if you can look at that itemized list of fights, those aforementioned fights that I just mentioned, and you're telling yourself that all of that is crap, I guess that just boils down to preference.
Maybe Yard versus Koikov on BT Sport was more to your liking.
Or the box office sparring session between Tyson Fury and Derek Chisora, who he beat 2 times already.
I think it boils down to preference, and maybe you preferred that over DAZN's content.
Perhaps you did, as it all does boil down to preference, though I think you'll find that not as many people agree with you, Simon.
Not as many as you think.
Not if you're telling me that fights like Conlon versus Wood and Wood versus Lara are crap.
Do you guys out there agree with that?
Chocolatito 2 and 3, that was crap.
Maybe to you it was, but to me it wasn't. Different strokes for different folks.